Thank you for clicking on, YouTube, Facebook, podcast, Instagram. I don't know how you found me, but I'm thankful that you did. So, men are masturbating to robots. That's what's happening in the world today. So, how the heck did we get to that point? And I'm talking about good men, okay, being misled. You only have to be 1 or 2 degrees off. A month, a year, a decade later, you could be just way off track, way off mission. So this is the world that we're living in now. So I submit to every man listening here today that evil is at your door. I would even go to the extent to say evil is in your home. Evil is attacking and coming at you, your children, your marriage, your business. So, gentlemen, there's none. The worst thing about being in a fight is that you don't realize that you're actually in one. I have been in a fight, a physical fight, and been unaware of being in one. Back when I used to drink, I was a blackout drinker. Anyway, that's another story. But evil is at the door, gentlemen. You know what I want to. I can't help but think of just how things are traveling and how fast things are changing here. It reminds me of a really good mate, something he said, his father said to him a long time ago. Tony Pesci, he fought with us, he done our programs. This is like maybe, I'm guessing 15 years ago, I don't know, a long time ago. And I remember, and then he become a part of the Better Man group and helped so many men, and still does, by the way. But something he said was that his father said to him was, "What one generation will accept, the next generation will abuse." And I believe that is actually what we're seeing right now. So I want to go back. I want to go back and talk about in the 1800s. Because when we can go back and have a look, we can anyway. Because a question, I think, and for you men that are taking notes, I hope that you are, right. I want to ask a question like, when did we accept these certain things that are happening in the world? Like, at what point did we accept these certain things, like around divorce? When do we accept that? When do we accept that our children can be raised with our fathers? When do we, as a society, I'm talking about, when did we accept that? Hence all this other stuff that's happening I'm going to talk about. But back in the 1800s, and you may not know of this, right? But dating was never happened. Like dating in the Bible does not exist. Okay, dating in the Bible does not exist, and dating got introduced to English, the English language. Back in the 1800s, okay? And it was actually introduced by a prostitute, would you believe? Okay? So, without going all into it, it was introduced as dating was actually, hey, I'll do a favor for you and you do a favor for me. And prostitutes would go out on dates, would you believe, and do favors. So this is where, so before the 1800s, dating did not exist in the English language, okay? And it does not exist in the Bible, all right? So back in the day, always, dating didn't exist. So what happened was families would meet, right? And they would see who was suitable in regards to beliefs, morals, integrity, vision. Make sure that your families align. And then, of course, then there would be, sometimes they would meet at the altar, okay? Sometimes there was a brief meeting before it, but there was a decision made. There was, and particularly when when men would marry, okay, there would be a covenant. In the Bible, it talks about a covenant under God. So, which is extraordinary, I think. Well, it was different then. You may submit, but times have changed. They have changed. Absolutely. Men are masturbating to robots. They have changed. So if you want to submit to that, hey, I am going to stop any man from doing that. Oh, you got to have a laugh, don't you? And maybe you may have done that, okay, without knowing. With all this AI that's happening, you may have done that without even knowing, okay? There's no shame here. Where, particularly the Man Alive experience, all the different programs I do, the books I write, there's no judgment. It's all about becoming a better man, all right? So when we talk about marriage, we talk about maybe under a covenant, because why have we, in depending on what city, what culture, what country you're in, but it's between 40 and 50% divorce rate for marriages. So that oath that was made, that coming under that covenant that was made, half the time that's not working. But this is the thing: whether you're a believer or not doesn't matter. I was helping people quite a few years before I become a Christian, before a believer. But because the way I was helped through mentors and coaches was, see, principles work no matter what. Gravity works whether you believe it or not. You've only got to miss a step, and gravity works. So there's laws and principles that are timeless, that are beliefless. Like you don't have to believe in gravity; it's going to work, no matter what. There's a range of different principles. Okay, so but what's interesting, I think, a lot of men must maybe be aware of. See, when you get married, there's something spiritual that happens. Okay, and you, like I said, you come under a covenant. And actually, scriptures say that you are connected for life. Okay, you are connected for life, but we get hurt, we get let down, we get disappointed. Atrocity can happen either by you or to you or both. And of course, when the kids are involved, the same happens to them. But so when marriage happens, you actually are connected for life, no matter what. That's in a spiritual sense. That's what the Bible says. But I think most men will know, and even if they don't see their ex-wife, they know they're connected, whether it be through children or just where you're connected. I'm pretty sure I don't have to convince you on that. But what I really want to talk about here, and I want to. I'm just looking at my notes, and particularly if you want to go and have a look at what Romans 7, 2-3. Go and check that out. All right, if you're taking notes, go and check that out. But when we've got, I'm sorry, man, I'm just looking at my notes. I just want to make sure that I get all this right, and but a way that we can help, because I want to talk to, sure, we've got men, and this is going to help you. That's why I want you to listen to the end, because I'm talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things here. Okay, so you're going to get at least. I'm looking at those things. I know I need help in all of them. We're just being real here, okay? If that's okay, we're being real here. So when we've got blind spots, things that we can't see, because you may be married and you're thinking, what the heck is going on here? What have I done wrong? Remember, you only got to be 1 or 2 degrees off, and a decade later you're like, what the heck happened? So when it comes to oaths, and I think, what I talk about, particularly in my rite of passage for the Modern Man ebook, okay, when I talk about that, I talk about making an oath. I talk about the first pillar is uncovering your personal oaths. So oaths, agreements, unshakable, breakable promises. So when in our marriage, and for me, it's all about becoming a better man, not just for me, but for the people, my children, my family. So when I talk about oaths, I don't know how long you've been married. I don't know even if you've divorced or even if you're unsure what's going on in your marriage. You can make oaths today. You can make agreements today. You can improve today through me. So, like, I remember, because I had some great mentors early days. I want to go early days in my mid-20s, early 20s, when I sorted myself out, and I've been with my wife for years. Okay, since we're teenagers. We got married, and I remember saying to my wife, "It's when I say death do us part, I'm not joking. You're going to have to die to get out of this." That was the commitment that I made to her. But since then, I do things to actually support with other oaths, like making sure that her dreams come true as well as mine. Okay, for a long time, having an 18-year boxing career, she's my greatest supporter. I was there the whole lot since my amateur days, like since we're teenagers, So obviously, when I finished that and I realized to do something like that, and I think most men, we have that gift and talent to really focus, to really just get involved with what we're doing, obsessed, compulsive, whatever it takes. It's in all of us. Even if you've got ADHD or you're dyslexic or you stop and start, that's a muscle that you can exercise, because we're, particularly when we go to war, in certain things, we look at past history. When we go to war, man, we can just go all in. That's what's different about men. We can actually do that. I'm not saying women can't. I'm just saying when men master that skill, man, we can do great things. So I was able to do that, obviously, in a boxing career. So one of my oaths is that my wife's dreams would come true. So hence what we've done over the years, hence we've been here in the Mediterranean for it's going to be 2 years shortly. It was a part of living her dream. Hence, I've got a lot out of it as well. Hence our kids, etc. One of the things about when you're living your dream, man, others must benefit, and of course, in every way. So anyway, what I'm talking about, we're going to ask her, come back to that question. When did we accept divorce? When did we accept all this other stuff, this rubbish? When did we accept our children, not seeing our children, for goodness sake? When do we accept 50% of our children? When do we accept these things? I'm throwing these things out, man, to ask yourself. I don't want an answer. You can leave a comment if that's a good question, Gav. But I mean, you know what I'm saying. So gentlemen, because this is, I'm always one for getting leverage on myself, like certain dreams and missions and purposes that I have that I'm developing. I always say to myself, well, how am I going to be if I do not do it? How am I going to be in 1 year, in 5 years? How am I going to be on my deathbed if I don't pursue these things that are in me? That's leverage. So I say to myself, right? When it comes to, I've got 7 children. How am I going to be if I'm not with my children? Because many parents, many men are in the family home, but they're not there. Like, they're there, but their mind is somewhere else. So present, we've heard that word the last couple of decades. I think it might have been invented 15 years ago. All of a sudden, everyone starts using be present. Okay, just be where you are is what I say, So not present emotionally. So what happens when you're not with your kids? This is a ramification. I'm talking about leverage here. And this may be a poke in the chest for somebody, okay? And I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean it I'm talking man to man to get you to step up and take full responsibility, okay? Because that's what men do. Okay, and you may not have in the past, but I'm telling you, it can be a new day if you say it's a new day. So one of the things that I get leverage on myself to help me go the distance is that, statistics show when a child does not have a father, they struggle with their identity. They don't know who they are, okay? And you may be like that. I don't know who I am. Maybe your dad was not able to pass certain things down. The data shows children struggle managing their emotions when they don't have a dad in their house, when they're not connected to their father. Okay, their behavior suffers. When their father's not around. I mean, who knows? Your dad's always going to be a better disciplinarian than a mother, than a woman. It's just the way it goes. We can deliver things better. We're firmer, if we obviously tap into that, So this is the thing though. Children with a dad actually form better relationships with people, with their spouse, their future spouse, just with people in general. And without that, they actually struggle in social situations at a much higher rate. Not saying kids can overcome all those things, but I'm saying it's just better with a dad. Okay, so I know, men, it can be hard, but I'm saying this is why I'm making this. You can do it, man. I don't care your past. Your future can have nothing to do with your past if you choose it. So I want to talk about divorce. When do we accept this rubbish with divorce in society? And I'm saying, one of my best friends has got divorced. I know many men that have been divorced, but they're able to turn it around and make it actually a good thing and have an amazing relationship with their children. And I know some men that have been able to heal the past and even have an amazing relationship with their ex-wife. So men, all is not bad. You know what I mean? You may have made a mistake. We can turn it around, is what I'm saying. But this is the next three things I'm going to talk about. Right? You may have gone into this. All right. I'm talking about what we've accepted here. We talked about dating. Okay. And we talked about how it's just crept in over the years, and then it's acceptable to have sex before marriage. It's acceptable to sleep with random people, and it's acceptable just to what's the word? Impregnate a woman and disappear. It's acceptable, And many men have done that, wanted to be on, and the woman has taken off. I get it takes two to tango, but I'm talking to the men here. Okay, so all of a sudden, when all this stuff's acceptable, and this Tinder turns up, an app that you can see who wants to have sex at night, and then go and do it. When did it become acceptable that it's a regular thing to have sex with a stranger? Gentlemen, and the reason I bring this up, one of the reasons is, I did the last Become a Better Man 5-day challenge we did. And in the VIP section, men are able to ask questions, anything you want. Generally from what we do in the challenge each day, for that hour each day, it brings other questions to the VIP section. So and there's a great, just so many great men being themselves, being authentic, being real. But in the VIP section, we always get curly ones. and it was a great question because a guy was having situations with his partner, and he recognized that it was exactly the same. Well, he was responding the same with his ex-wife. He'd been divorced, okay? And that was a part of the reason of getting divorced. And he started playing this out, this behavior in this new relationship, although there was no warrant for it at all, but he was carrying something into the next relationship, okay? Even though it had nothing to do, the woman, was not, it had nothing to do. So what happens when you have these Tinder relationships, experiences, have sex with strangers? See, the Bible says that we actually, something spiritual happens when our souls connect, okay, when you have sex with a woman. Statistics show when a woman has sex with more than 5 men, with more than 5 people, the chances, and it goes for men as well, right? When men have sex with more than 5 partners, the divorce rate goes to 50%. Gentlemen, that's what happens. Okay, the divorce rate goes to 50%. So is that not an indicator that most of our marriages are at 50%? Between 40 and 50%. I'm sorry, most of our divorces go down to 40 or 50%. Yeah. I talk about this in the challenge. I talk about in life as men, we don't get what we want, we get what we are. So if you were going to go out and have sex with as many women as you can, that's exactly what you're going to get. Okay? So maybe that's something to think about. Not to say, and if you've done that in the past, all good, because when it comes to, when I come from a biblical perspective sometimes, where it says, because it talks about adultery, okay? Adultery does not mean having sex outside of, behind your wife's back. Adultery means sex outside of marriage is what it means, okay? So what happens, which is sin, okay? Sin means, and this is why I don't want to go into a Bible study, but sin means to miss the mark. That's what it means. It comes from a bow and arrow. It means you missed the mark. That's sin. It still might be good. You landed, you scored. Goodness me, that's it. But it means you missed the mark. So when it comes to sex outside the marriage, adultery, you connect with another soul, you're connected forever. You're actually connected forever, it says. So talking about when you go into other relationships, other sexual relationships, you're bringing your past behavior, you're bringing past agreements you've made, you're bringing past covenants in. So, and this is what I did, gentlemen, in the challenge, in the VIP section. Obviously, it's quite intimate. Men are asking stories. We always make an agreement. What's said here, stays here. We don't want to name anyone, and hence I'm talking to you because I know you benefit. But obviously, there's no name, so you don't know who it is, etc. So, and I'm always quite open, So, what I'm getting to here is you're carrying stuff in. If you're doing that, you're carrying. And so what I said in this call, I said at the end of that talk, and we got quite deep. Okay, we talk about a whole heap of stuff that I'm not going to talk about here. But what I'm saying, I said to men, and this may be something you want to ask yourself. I said to men, who has had sex with somebody, whether your wife, whether a stranger, whether somebody you just partnered with or whatever, have finished the sexual experience and thought that was yuck. Or when I say yuck, that there was a that was weird. That felt distant. You had sex, but there was no intimacy, and of course, when you're having sex with multiple people, you're going to be bringing all those partners in, all those covenants in. And man, we just talk on real talk here. We just talk on real talk. So quite often I believe, and I mean, so much science and theologians and atheists, counselors will all back this stuff up. the more sexual partners you have, okay, the more chance of divorce. So I say that, but you can draw a line in the sand. All that's, it says all, our defects, our character traits, all that, through therapy, counseling, all that stuff can be mended. But when it comes to sexual sin, you need God to heal it. That's the bottom line. So, hey, man, I'm just getting real here. I hope that's okay. I may have lost you. Hang on, because we're getting to the juicy bit. This is what I think. I've got 5 daughters, all right? So this is what I think when I look at because there's you've only got to walk out the front door of your house, and there is how can I say this? We're men, we're attracted to attractive women, people, etc. But there's that scripture that says, guide your eyes, your ears, guide your heart. You've got to protect. You've got to protect what you see. You know what I'm saying, gentlemen? So when it gets into this, what's come up now, this OnlyFans, right? When I look at women, I look at, hey, that's somebody's daughter. And this may be something that you think, what are you talking about, Gav? I've got one wife, one woman, okay? I made an oath to that woman. Forever, death do us part. But what's my responsibility to that? I must guard my eyes. I must guard my attention. I must guard my heart. I am only friends with women if they're connected with my wife or my daughters. You know what I mean? I look at that's somebody's daughter. That's that's what I'm saying, man. Yeah, you may benefit from that because, man, you've only got to be off track one degree, and you can be way off. Your thoughts can run right. Am I? Yes or no? Leave me a comment. Who's had their thoughts? They've gone down some rabbit holes. So when it comes to this, what do we call it? OnlyFans. This is what we're talking about, society, what we've accepted here. Okay, what have we accepted? We've accepted online prostitution for our maybe our neighbours' daughters. Maybe you've got daughters doing. Maybe where the heck did we go wrong? Where the heck did we go wrong, gentlemen? What have we accepted? Remember, one generation accepts, the next generation will abuse. Is that landing, gentlemen? It's real. It's here. It's not just on our doorstep. It's in our phones. It's in our houses. It's in our homes. It's on our laptops. I said at the start of it, man, evil is at your door. Evil is in your homes. Evil is in your children's hands, gentlemen. So as men, what are we doing? What are we doing? In the Become a Better Man challenge, in day 1, I talk about your enemy. Your enemy, gentlemen. What is your enemy? Okay. I'll repeat it. Nothing worse than being in a fight and you don't realize you're in one. You're getting hit, and all of a sudden you come home and the house is empty. That didn't just happen, gentlemen. You're in a fight for years before you're even aware of it, I would say. Being real here. Being real. But I'm telling you, you can turn this around, gentlemen. So men who have OnlyFans accounts, they're going and they're seeing women, they're watching women. Okay, we're going to look at this. You can turn this around. That's somebody's daughter. And the truth is, okay, you are doing that. Men are doing this because they're lonely, because they're lacking connection. That's why they're doing it, because they're lacking validation. Masculine validation is one of the strongest things that will drive men. They don't even realize. I can remember years ago, and I'm talking 20 plus years ago. I'm talking early 2000s, right? I remember doing this. I've been doing this for a long time. I remember doing this program called The Valiant Man, and it was basically what it was. What was his name? Pastor Meyer. I can't think of his first name. Anyway, in Australia, in Melbourne, he's based. Well, he was back then anyway. And he talked about sexual discipleship. Okay, and man, and he talked. Well, there was a part in it that talked about. I mean, there was a part in it that talked about homosexuality. And like how do men, what leads men to those things, and the way he broke it down was the core of it was that when he broke it, you could see it's all about they want love from a man, from a man. Men, we must have that. We long for that. Our heart longs for masculine validation. And he pointed out, I'm not going to go into it now, but as you went through all those different stages, right, generally they missed out on masculine validation as a boy from a male, from a father, or the opposite end, they were sexually abused and they got obviously the other end of it, but it was a way they got some love. I'm not going to go into it. I'm not going to, but gentlemen, the point was, he said that, and I believe it, most homosexual men understand recognize more about the masculine validation than most heterosexual men. They understand they need that love. You know what I mean? So when men haven't got that, or they've lost their virginity from a woman before their masculine validation was received, they got it from a woman. So maybe you think back to that first time you had sex and you thought, whoa, man, I feel like a man. I remember my first girlfriend, I never had sex with. I remember laying down in a horse stable and in the hay, her cuddling. I would have been 13 at the time, I reckon. She was cuddling me. We were laying down, cuddling, kissing. It was like my first ever passionate kiss, right? And I remember her turning into my chest. And I remember cuddling. I didn't have a chest then, but I tell you what I felt like. I felt like, man, when I started to learn about this, I thought that was the first time I felt like, man, I had a chest. The validation come from her. Thank God I had a dad who would validate me and strengthen me, and whether he realized it at the time, he was giving me tests and hardship and challenges, and it made me a better man. It made me grow up. It made me rely on the strength that was in me, from that validation from a male, So obviously that felt amazing, but I was not relying on it. I've never gone to a woman for a source of validation because I had a man validate me the right way through hardship. Gentlemen, so that's the hence of the OnlyFans. If you're doing that, it's because you haven't had masculine validation, or maybe some men. I always talk about that counterfeit validation. Hey, the biggest house on the hill, make the most money, the fastest car. You know what I'm talking about, gentlemen. Okay, so but the essence of it, if you go down that path of Tinder, if you go down that path of instant validation, I suppose what you call it, that OnlyFans, it will corrupt your integrity. Yeah, I'll say it again. That's the easiest way to corrupt your integrity. Remember, what walks in the Father will run in the Son. So, gentlemen, be a man. Be a man. So, all right, there we go. This AI OnlyFans. So there's companies, there's people, right, that are becoming on robot. They're making robots so they look like women, and they've just got they've got these OnlyFans accounts that have AIs, AI women, AI, I don't even know what you call it, right? Men, evil is in our homes. Evil is at the door. What the heck are we going to do about it, gentlemen? I'm asking you. I'm asking you. You may have been hoodwinked. So I'm saying, men, that's what I said at the start, men are masturbating to robots. Where did that happen? What one generation will accept, the next generation will abuse. Are we not seeing this? Yes or no? Gentlemen. So what I'm saying, I mean, I don't even know what to say when it comes to that. Men have been misled, men have been hoodwinked, men have been, their integrity has been corrupted, and all this is happening, and men as leaders, as men of God, as men with integrity, men, and you don't have to be a man of God to have integrity. We all believe in something. We all have a moral code. We all have a set of values that we're living to. Maybe all of us need to maybe have a look at what we're accepting in our homes, what we're watching on our phones, on TV, etc. What we've subscribed to, gentlemen. Almost, you can tell a man's integrity by where his money goes to, where his resources go to. That's where you can tell a man's integrity, what he's giving his time and his energy and his resources to. So man, I would say if that's, I would say, I love that saying, which comes from the 1800s. What was that guy's name? He said, he was, oh, jeepers, I've gone blank. Anyway, I know what it is. I just can't, it's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, he says, evil happens because great men do not step up, because great men stay silent. Evil is at our door, man. Are you going to stay silent? I'm trying to think of, evil, well, I'm using my own words here. It's necessary. It's necessary for evil to be defeated, men, and it's going to take men stepping up. That's the bottom line. So I say to you, what are you going to do about it? Because when I talk about before leverage, I think about my children, I think about my own marriage, I think about my wife, I think about men who I love, I'm talking about men, I love these men like brothers. I love these, I think about men that are going through our mentorships programs. I think about men reading our books. When I say there's been so many men that have helped me contribute. I feel like it's ours. So men, hey, listen, this has been a long post, I think. I'm not sure how long it's going. It's 37 minutes. Maybe this is the conversation that needs to be had right now in the world. Maybe this is the conversation that good men are not stepping up and doing. So then evil is happening. Evil's happening everywhere. So gentlemen, hey, listen, maybe you want to share this with somebody that will benefit. That might be that. Maybe if you like this and you think, well, Gav, I need to become a better man, because that's the answer. You become a better man. You become a man who says no to the rubbish. That's what you do. You become in line. Yeah, you be integrous to your integrity. You don't compromise your values. That's the answer, gentlemen. So maybe become a better man challenge could be the next step. Maybe it's read one of my ebooks. I don't know, man, but do something. Because if you don't, the man who stands for nothing will be taken out. The man that stands for something will have a direction and have a vision for that. So, man, what is it? Stand for nothing, you'll be taken out. I'm trying to think. It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, gentlemen, it doesn't matter. Do something good. Stand for something or you'll fall for anything. There it is. Stand for something or you'll fall for anything. All right, gentlemen, over and out.